Hey friends, it's Mary Giordano, and welcome to Unapologetically Wild. Every single day, you have a choice. You can stay where you are, or you can step into the possibility of something even greater. And I'm here to spark that flame within you and inspire you to show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. Messy, scared, and real. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to Unapologetically Wild. Today, we're talking about one of my longest running toxic relationships, and that's procrastination. And I know I'm not the only one because I hear it so often from so many of you. I hear, oh, I just need to do it. I keep putting it off. I keep procrastinating. I don't know why I procrastinate so much. And trust me, I've lived that pattern for much of my life. I've procrastinated on everything. And I think it actually all started when I wrote my graduate research paper, the one that basically determined my entire degree the night before it was due. It was like 80 pages or something like that, but I got 100% on it. So that was all the proof I needed to believe I worked well under pressure, or at least that's what I've been telling myself for the last 23 years. And here we are. So no, this is not me preaching from some pedestal. This is me saying, hey, this is what I've learned about why we actually put things off and how to stop letting it run the damn show. But I do have to say, I am proud of one thing right now. I actually wrote this episode 2 weeks in advance, which is absolutely unheard of for me. But I did it because I was heading out on a trip and I knew if I didn't write this episode, I'd be sitting on the floor at 1 a.m. Tuesday morning, recording and editing this in a hoodie, frustrated at myself and everything and everyone else. So if you've ever delayed something you actually care about, you're not lazy, you're not broken, you're just protecting yourself in a way that doesn't serve you anymore. And it's costing you more than you think. So let's talk about what's really underneath all of that procrastination and, most importantly, how to finally move through it without waiting to the last minute every damn time. Let's get started. So first things first, procrastination isn't a time issue. It's not about laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a nervous system thing. You're not putting it off because you don't know what to do. You're putting it off because something about doing it feels unsafe. And I know that might sound dramatic, but your brain doesn't actually know the difference between real danger and emotional discomfort. So when something feels overwhelming, uncertain, or even emotionally heavy, your nervous system hits the brakes. It's not like you're sitting there thinking, oh, this task might threaten my identity or trigger my fear of failure, so I'm just going to sit here and scroll TikTok instead. But that is what's happening under the surface. That resistance you feel, again, it's not laziness. It's your brain trying to protect you from something it perceives as a threat. And that threat might look like fear of being judged, fear of doing it wrong, fear of wasting time, fear of starting and not finishing, or even fear of confirming some old beliefs like, see, I never followed through. So what do instead? You stall, you reorganize your entire spice cabinet. You suddenly feel the urge to deep clean the kitchen. You decide now's the perfect time to start a new Pinterest board for your dream bathroom. That's not a character flaw. That's your brain saying, let's avoid this uncomfortable thing and stick to what feels safe. And if you're thinking, okay, but what about the laundry? That's not a big emotional thing. Why do I always procrastinate doing the laundry? So let's talk about that. Even with the simple stuff, procrastination isn't about the task itself. It's about the feeling you've attached to it. So maybe it's decision fatigue, what to hang, what to fold, what still smells weird. Or maybe it's overwhelm. It's not just laundry, it's laundry plus dishes plus texts plus your never-ending to-do list. Or maybe it's resentment. Why am I the only one doing this shit? Or maybe it's boredom. Your brain sees no reward, no novelty, no stimulation. Or maybe it's perfectionism. If I can't finish the entire pile of laundry right now, what's the point to even start? So even the most basic task can stir up resistance if your nervous system is already overloaded, or if your inner critic jumps in and starts layering on guilt like, ugh, I'm so behind. I should have done this days ago. Why can't I just get my life together? And once that inner dialogue kicks in, you're not avoiding the task anymore. You're avoiding the feeling the task brings up. So yeah, putting off laundry doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means your brain is doing what it's wired to do. Avoid discomfort, conserve energy, and stay safe. But if you don't learn to recognize that pattern for what it is, you'll keep calling yourself inconsistent or broken or lazy when really you're just untrained in discomfort. And no, you're not a procrastinator. You might have a habit of procrastinating, but that's not who you are. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Let's talk about the part that keeps you trapped way longer than the procrastination itself. And that's shame. Because after you avoid the thing, after you scroll past it, talk yourself out of it, or straight up ghost it, what kicks in next? The spiral. You start beating yourself up. Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me? I had the whole fucking day. Why couldn't I just start? Trust me, I know how that feels. Suddenly, you're not just procrastinating anymore. You're layering guilt and self-judgment on top of it. And that shame loop, that's what keeps the pattern alive. Because now you're not just avoiding the task, you're avoiding the feeling of being someone who doesn't follow through. So what do? You numb it, you distract yourself, you scroll, snack, binge watch, plan, replan, overplan. You promise yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow, and now shame and hope are tangled together in one tight little emotional knot. And it gets sneakier because then we start throwing around these casual little statements like, I'm such a procrastinator, it's just how I operate, I always wait until the last minute, I've been this way forever. And on the surface, they don't seem like a big deal. They're not dramatic. They're not self-loathing, but they're sneaky because what you're really doing is reinforcing the identity. You're teaching your brain, this isn't just something I do, it's who I am. And once it feels like who you are, it stops feeling possible to change. And this is the kind of language that locks you in while sounding casual. But casual doesn't mean harmless. So let me say this clearly. You cannot shame yourself into consistency. You cannot hate yourself into action. You cannot bully your way into becoming the version of you you actually want to be. Shame does not create momentum. It creates paralysis. And if you've ever felt like you're stuck in a loop, that's probably why. So before we even get into identity shifts or action steps, you've got to stop making procrastination mean something about your worth. It's not a flaw, it's a fucking pattern. And when you take the shame out of it, that's when you finally create space to change it. So now that we've stripped the shame off the top, let's talk about why you still feel stuck, even when you want to change. Because here's the truth. You don't take action based on what you want. You take action based on who you believe you are. I'm going to say that again. You don't take action based on what you want. You take action based on who you believe you are. I mentioned this over and over and over again in last week's episode. If you missed it, when you're done here, head over to episode 14 and tune in. It was a good one. So you don't do the thing because you should. You do it because on some level, your brain believes it matches your identity. And if deep down you still see yourself as someone who either never finishes things, can't be trusted to follow through, always waits until the last minute, or has always been this way, then your brain is going to protect that story by making sure your actions align with it. Not because you're broken, but because you're wired for consistency. Your brain wants to close the loop between how you see yourself and what you do, even if that identity is the thing holding you back. So when you say things like, I'm such a procrastinator, you're not just describing your behavior, you're reinforcing your identity. That's why language matters. It's not semantics, it's strategy. So instead of, I'm a procrastinator, try, I'm someone who has patterns of procrastinating and I'm currently working on changing them. That one shift, that's how you create space between who you've been and who you're becoming. Because your identity doesn't shift when you think about it. It shifts when you take action that contradicts the old story. You don't become someone who follows through by feeling ready. You become someone who follows through by doing the damn thing, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's small, even when it's messy, even when it's just 5 minutes. That's how your brain starts to collect new evidence. It starts to say, wait a second, maybe I can be trusted, or maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Maybe I actually can show up differently. Maybe I can follow through on things. And that's how identity shifts. Not with declarations, not with journaling, not with manifesting, but with action. The smallest yes can start to overwrite years and years of stories. So if you've been waiting for motivation to move you, just like I mentioned in last week's episode on motivation, you don't wait for the feeling, you create it. Movement is what creates motivation. Action is what reshapes identity. And identity is what drives behavior. This isn't about pushing harder or being better. It's about interrupting the old story you've been living in for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 years. So stop trying to change your life from the top down and start changing it from the inside out. All right, so let's say you know all of this. You get it. You see the patterns, you understand the resistance, and still you don't want to start. That moment, that's where procrastination gets loud. It's where your brain tries to sell you on the idea that later will feel better, but it won't. So here are some things you can actually do. Number one, write it down and decide on the first 2-minute move. Before you do anything else, get the task out of your head and onto paper. Naming it shrinks it. Then immediately ask yourself, if I only had 2 minutes to work on this, what would I start? For example, maybe you just open the document, or you move the laundry to the washer, or you write one bullet point, or you make the grocery list, or start the outline. You don't have to finish the thing, you have to interrupt the freeze. Number two, lower the emotional stakes, not the standards. Most of the reason you're not moving is because you've made starting feel heavy. So tell yourself something like, I'm allowed to do this badly today. I just need to show up. You're not giving up your standards for the final product. You're giving up the pressure that's keeping you from starting at all. There is no version of you who gets to skip the messy beginning. You can own it now, or you can keep circling later. And lastly, anchor it to a bigger why, right now. Procrastination shrinks your world down to what's easiest in the moment. You have to zoom the hell out. So ask yourself one of these right now. Why does finishing this matter to the future version of me? Who else benefits when I stop putting this off? What part of my bigger life am I disrespecting by staying frozen? If you can't anchor the action to a bigger reason, it will always feel optional. So instead, make it personal. You don't break procrastination by forcing yourself to want to do it. You break it by refusing to keep negotiating with your own resistance. So now you've taken all my advice and you've started. You've used the tools, but maybe there's still this little tiny part of you that resists doing things calmly, early, or without a ticking clock behind you. Some of us aren't just used to procrastinating. We've gotten addicted to the chaos it creates. And I don't mean addicted in a dramatic way. I mean chemically. Your nervous system is used to the spike that comes with pressure. When you delay long enough for panic to kick in, your body releases a cocktail of adrenaline, cortisol, and dopamine. And those chemicals, they give you just enough energy, urgency, and focus to finally do the thing. So now your brain thinks, oh, this is how we operate: delay, stress, action, relief. It's not a strategy, it's survival. And that's why the chaos feels weirdly productive, why you feel numb until the last minute, why you might even romanticize that pressure, thinking you work best in it. But just because your body knows how to operate in chaos doesn't mean that chaos is a requirement. High functioning procrastination is still procrastination. It just looks polished on the outside. And sure, maybe you can deliver when the pressure's high, but what's the cost? The recovery time, the anxiety hangover, the crash that comes after, the way it chips away at your self-trust, even when you get it done. You don't need to keep proving that you can perform in a crisis. You need to start proving you can create without one. Because peace isn't boring, ease isn't weak, and stability isn't the enemy. Let go of the spike and let go of the story that says you need chaos to be powerful. And give your nervous system permission to build a new baseline, one where you're not waiting for panic to create movement. Instead, you're creating it on your own terms. But chaos isn't the only way resistance shows up. Sometimes it dresses itself up as something more acceptable, something we even feel proud to claim. Let's talk about one of the most convenient lies so many of us tell ourselves. And that's, I'm just a perfectionist. Because saying that, it sounds harmless. It even sounds admirable. Like you just have high standards, like you're someone who cares. But most of the time, perfectionism is just fear in disguise. Fear of judgment, fear of not doing it right, fear of looking like you don't know what you're doing, fear of giving it your best and still not being enough. So, what do? You wait, you plan, you tweak, you stall, and you tell yourself you're being thoughtful or intentional or just not ready yet. But really, you're avoiding the discomfort of being seen in the middle, the in progress, the messy, the vulnerable part where you don't have it all figured out. And here's the truth. You can't improve what you never start. You can't edit a blank page. You can't grow if you never let anyone see the version of you that's still becoming. So yeah, perfectionism sounds nice, but it's just another version of procrastination wrapped in self-protection. If that's the story you've been living in, it's time to fucking drop it. Because the life you want, it doesn't require you to be flawless. It requires you to be in it. So if perfectionism has been your safety blanket, drop it. Not because you're over it, but because it's holding you back. You're not waiting for the right time. You're waiting to feel untouchable. But that version of you, she doesn't exist. And let's be honest, the only one who cares how you look while you figure it out is you. Everyone else is busy with their own shit. No one is grading your process or keeping track except for you. So let yourself be seen mid-build, mid-shift, I'm still figuring it out, because that's where everything shifts. Not after perfect, right here. You've heard the patterns, you've seen the stories, and now you know the truth. Procrastination isn't about effort. It's about fear, identity, nervous system wiring, and perfectionism disguised as purpose. The truth is, every time you hesitate, you're not just putting off a task. You're putting off a version of yourself you say you want to become. You don't need a new planner. You don't need a new morning routine. You don't need a better time to start. You need to stop living like you have unlimited chances to show up for yourself. The task isn't the enemy. The waiting is. So here's the choice. You can keep buying yourself more time, or you can start taking yourself seriously. Not tomorrow, not when it feels easier, not when the chaos feels urgent enough, but right now. Because procrastination, it'll cost you a hell of a lot more than time if you keep treating things like they're disposable. Start before you feel ready, move before the excuses get louder, and choose yourself while you still can. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode hit home, subscribe and share it with a friend, because together we can bring more women into this wild, unapologetic space. Remember, waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to nowhere. So show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. And don't forget to subscribe to my Unapologetically Wild Chronicles. The link's in the show notes. Until next time, stay wild.